estoy muy contento de poder moderar este evento paralelo, construyendo puentes en cuanto al conocimiento y la práctica del deporte. Estamos hablando sobre las medidas hacia la acción multilateral. Muchas gracias a Antonella y Remy por haber colocado este pan tan importante, porque vamos a hablar sobre el desarrollo sostenible a través del deporte. Como todos ustedes saben, esta coalición se creó hace 3 años en París durante el TICS. Entonces, ¿de qué se trata la coalición? Somos un grupo de bancos de desarrollo públicos e inversionistas internacionales. Esto es fundamental para el desarrollo sostenible. Pero el deporte para el desarrollo es un deporte en equipo. Entonces, lo que quisiera es que todos los que están aquí juguemos en este campo. Vamos a tratar de hacer un caso fuerte con nuestras intervenciones el día de hoy. Los datos están mejorando y yo creería que hay un costo-beneficio importante para poder invertir en el deporte. Pero podemos también al mismo tiempo escalarlo. Y para esto necesitamos la ayuda de todos ustedes. Hay aún muchos desafíos, por ejemplo, infraestructura accesible y sobre todo traduciendo la educación física y el deporte en dólares y centavos. Necesitamos hablar sobre el mundo de la banca para que todos estemos en la misma página. Y esa es la razón de este evento paralelo. Espero que ustedes les parezca interesante este panel y que juguemos en este mismo equipo. Ya estoy hablando mucho, por lo tanto quisiera pasarle la palabra a Antonella Baldino, vicepresidente del Instituto para el Crédito Deportivo. Antonella, hay muchos hombres aquí, por favor, puedes hablar. Muchas gracias.
Juan Pablo.
Muchísimas gracias, Juan Pablo. Muchas gracias por tu presentación. Señoras y señores, queridos amigos y colegas, primero que todo quisiera agradecer el BID, ICAF, Bancoldex y el EIB por esta cuarta edición.
Here in the spectacular city of Cartagena, and quoting the words of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, where everything is different. It's different. And let me also thank Remy. His inspiring leadership was the spark that lit the fuse of our Financing Common movement. And indeed, Remy was the true promoter of the launch of the Sport Coalition within FIX back in 2020, a coalition which today is committed to increasing financial resources, investment, and expertise to build a more sustainable world through sport. A coalition of financial institutions and institutional partners that share a common vision on what it takes to implement development in the right way. This is an alliance by design, in that we share the same global challenges with business models which are very much aligned. And at the same time, the reason why we are here today is because we all believe that we can take this collaboration to the next level. And this summit makes the case for reinforcing our shared strategies in development with a systemic, holistic vision where sport takes its rightful place. So sport is a sector that sits at the nexus of many economic, social, and environmental objectives, cross-cutting topics that interconnect a wide range of global priority issues from social inclusion, health, education, gender equality, women empowerment, to innovation, green infrastructure, and sustainable urban development. This is a sector which represents a fast-growing segment of the economy, and it makes an important contribution to growth and jobs, and at the same time it represents a key enabler of a wide range of SDGs. As a public development banks, we look at sport from a specific financial perspective, knowing that it's a multidimensional impact instrument at work for development at all times and all over the world. Moreover, sport value, teamwork, fair play, merit-based competition, respect for both your opponent and the rule of the game are a universal blueprint going well beyond the playing field. Ban Ki-moon defined sport as a low-cost, high-impact tool. For all these reasons, I'm particularly proud to be here introducing this panel representing today Istituto per il Credito Sportivo, or ICS, the Italian Public Development Bank, with a specific mandate to promote inclusive, equitable, and sustainable growth through sport and, more recently, culture. Indeed, the sport is traditionally the central strategic theme of our mandate, sport as a means to create durable, resilient, and sustainable economy and societies. Giving sport its rightful place in development is a central pillar of ICS strategy, and this implies, first of all, mobilizing financial resources of key stakeholders, from financial institutions to donors, from public authorities to the private sector, to deliver effective solutions and strike the right balance between the public and the private sector, between the logic of donor and the logic of market players. And second, this implies also promoting and implementing a culture of measurement as a prerequisite for impact-driven policy actions. So measurement, and in fact, one of last year's financing common recommendation was the need to set up and harmonize the impact measurement standards and better data in order to reorient and leverage all financial flows towards achieving SDGs, also to the proper design of attractive asset classes for potential investors. In the same spirit, early this year, ICS, the Istituto del Credito Sportivo, launched a tactical approach, the Delta platform, which is an integral part of our evaluation process and allow us to measure the social return of investment, the social impact on the community of the investment we finance, and the common good our investment produce in the long run. So the platform is an instrument which enables us to quantify the delta, the incremental value related to the capacity of the project to generate a multiplier effect. This multiplier effect of investing in sport is clear also from the analysis we performed on our outstanding loan portfolio. We are talking about 14,000 projects financed by ICS, so sport infrastructure, for investment value for over 4 billion euro. And the analysis reported a social return on investment of about 2.93, which means for each euro invested in project financed by ICS in the sports sector, each euro generates about 3 euro of social benefit, which is a very conservative number for several technical reasons. So very conservative, but at the same time, a real story of impact financing. And a result and an expertise that we are delighted also to share with you, our partner, to improve our common knowledge about sport as a viable asset class for development finance. And partnership is the name of the game, and in this perspective, we all believe that our coordinated action in the sports sector represents a unique opportunity to deploy complementarity in a key area of social, environmental, and economic growth to win the decisive challenge of our generation. We're working in partnership with a shared value of a team will become the best game plan. Let me conclude and leave the field to our moderator and distinguished panelists. I share with you all the sincere hope that our work as a financing common sport coalition will prove to be a vector of sustainable development year after year, acting as a catalyst for new and fruitful partnership. Indeed, partnership is the essence of the word competition. In the original meaning of competition, in Latin competere, is actually to strive together, to collaborate to reach a common goal. So let's compete and strive together for our common goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonella. I have to say that in the jungle of sustainable development through sports, the Instituto for el Crédito Sportivo is a very unique animal in that maybe it's the only public bank, as far as I'm concerned, that is specific of development through sports. So it would make sense that you guys have a very sophisticated platform to tie these knots, to prove this causality between grassroots sports and sustainable development. So thank you very much for this. Now let's get the panel going. But this is a sports panel, so we're gonna play a game. So to introduce our guests, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna say your name, and you're gonna pass the ball to the next guy, and just tell me in 1 or 2 words what is it that this agenda of sports for development needs to get to the next level. So Antonella, please pass the ball to Ángel Melguizo from UNESCO.
Oh, that's very close. Easy.
So, impact measurement.
Impact measurement. Okay, Stepan Onkowski from GIZ.
Scientific evidence.
Excellent. Scientific evidence. Oliver Dutfield from IOC.
Scaled responses.
Scaled responses, great. Federico Bonaglia from OECD.
Just to make it hard. For me, it's data.
All right. Will Mbiakop from the African Sport and Creative Institute.
What a pass. So for me, it's the IP. You know, most of the time we talk about intellectual property. I talk about investment for purpose. That's the IP.
All right. Well, thank you for this lightning round. Great team. So, Ángel, your answer was impact measurement. What is UNESCO doing in this direction? You guys just hosted the MINEPS meeting a couple months ago in Baku, Azerbaijan, which is the big global meeting where ministers of sports all getting together and see what it is that you can do to make the sports agenda move forward. So what can you make of impact measurement from that summit in Baku? What were the central points? And how do you see, as the UN main agency to promote sports for development, how can we make governments interested and to buy in the agenda?
Well, thank you very much indeed. And let me start thanking the attendees, people who are in this conference and being at 8:30 a.m. In Cartagena, India's, to discuss development. This is extreme sports. So really your resilience and being here is much appreciated. And obviously thanks to Instituto Crédito Sportivo, to AFD, to our great friends of CAF for the opportunity to be sharing what we are doing at UNESCO. At UNESCO, I mean, we have sports in our DNA. I'm regional advisor on AI and digital issues, but a passionate for sports. So it's really a pleasure to be here and sharing what we are doing actually together. Because as you asked, Juan Pablo, we don't have to convince our policymakers because they are ready. They're starting to be convinced because we have the data and we have the evidence. Actually, Remy, at the opening of this FIX conference, said it's no time for advocacy or narratives. This is time for action. And I think that this is a message I wanna bring. We have the tools, the political will, and the knowledge, and all the evidence to make a strong case for investing even more in sports. Because first, sports is development. And we know we are not even we are half time in terms of progress towards SDGs, but we are not halfway in getting those goals achieved. And we know that sports impact at least 8 of the Sustainable Development Goals directly. So this sports is development. Number 2, investing in sports is good investment. It's not just doing good, it's doing well. We have had the numbers by Antonella, 1 euro invested, 3 euros in returns, even more if you start to include some of the social, let's say, progress that entails people getting more activity and getting into a, let's say, a more healthy track, healthy in terms of social, healthy in terms of economics. So it's doing good and doing well at the same time. It's profitable. And last but not least, it's urgent. I'm pretty sure most of the people in the room struggled during the pandemic to keep on doing sports. No, I ran 10K in my parking slot because I couldn't go on the street. But numbers are crucial and clear. 40% fall in physical activity during the pandemic. This is going to have a long-lasting effect if we are not accelerating. So that's why we have to accelerate. Good news, we have the tools. I come from a house where we used to show all the covers of our report, and we have a flagship. I think the camera is there for the audience, online audience, but for you all, thank you very much. Impact investment in sports. This is a report just launched by UNESCO, which makes the case for people who are not probably in the room. First, sport practitioners and clubs, associations who don't know that they can fundraise money from public institutions, but also from private companies. And also a strong case for investors. I mean, you are looking for good investment. It's not just good social investment, but it's also a good financial investment, investing in sports. And this is what our tool from UNESCO is doing. 2, we gathered more than 100 countries in Azerbaijan some months ago, who showed the will to work on impact investment in sports. But more than that, we also built this Fit for Alliance initiative, where we have 10 countries from Iberoamerica committing to measure sports and measure the impact of sports in an adequate way, because we don't want to measure by inputs nor outputs. We want outcomes. And what investing in sports allows is better education, better health, and better paths. And we have a lot of countries. So I think the time is now, wrapping up. Again, quoting again the director of IFD, this is the time for action. We don't need more convince or more narrative or more advocacy. We need more money and more actors, more diverse actors at the table. And I think this event is particularly useful for that. Thank you, Juan Pablo.
Thank you, Angel. So, time for action. I like that. I'm guessing we can find your report in the website of the Coalition for Sustainable Development. There's a QR code so you guys can access that. Let's go to Stepan. Your answer was scientific evidence, which I think goes a little bit along those same lines. I understand GIZ, together with the German Sports University in Cologne, have been doing some interesting research all over in northern Iraq, Morocco, the Western Balkans, and 2 in Latin America, in Colombia, so thank you for that one, and in Mexico. So what are the findings of this research? What have you learned? What can we share with the audience to bring them on board to this agenda?
Thank you very much for the word. Before I come to answer that, I would like to start with my coming to Colombia 5 years ago. When I came here and assumed the responsibility, I have found this sport for development within the portfolio of the German Development Cooperation here, and my first reaction was, oh Jesus, this is another of this political fancy thing. Yeah, but I have to say that during the years, traveling through the country, talking to the communities, talking to the youngsters, talking to the mayors, talking to the Junta Vecinal, the information that I got about the impact of this project was really amazing, and that converted completely my opinion. And here comes the point why we need a scientific evidence. GIZ, as the Agency for Technical Cooperation, is financed by the German Ministry of Development Cooperation, and that means ministry is public funds. Most of the institutes, banks that are here present are also managing public funds. And public funds means taxpayers' money. And a taxpayer wants to know what is happening with his money. I am, as a taxpayer, interested to know what is happening with the money. And a taxpayer is not interested in hearing what some Stepan Unkowski means to have heard or experience, but he needs a scientific evidence that something is changing with the money that each of citizens of the country of the world is investing in this field. So that's why we are working with the university, sports university in Cologne, and they are using the same methodology throughout all the countries where we are present. And the results are really interesting and really convincing. For instance, here in Colombia, the evidence, the scientific evidence shows that through the approach of sport for development, the people learn how to solve conflicts in another way than just killing each other, if I exaggerate. That means the social bonds and camaraderie is one of the very important aspects. Or if we talk about the approach that we apply in northern Iraq, there the researchers from the university found out that the approach improves the psychosocial well-being, surprisingly even gender equality, and social cohesion and inclusion. The same university found out in Albania, North Macedonia, and Morocco that sport for development enhances self-confidence and goal orientation among children and youth. We are still awaiting the results of the research in Mexico, but the initial findings are also quite interesting, and we would be very happy to share with you more in detail the results of this scientific evidence.
Thank you very much, Stepan. All these studies presented are also available in the website of the coalition. I find it very fun that you chose the word convert. It's a quite a proper metaphor because it's not blind faith. As you say, you converted because you saw the evidence. And I think that is very important in our agenda. For me, it was the same. You know, I first felt it in my skin. I lived it in my life. But I wanted to go out and bring other people, but it can't be a matter of blind faith, but of evidence. So that's very, very great stuff, and I thank you, Stepan. Now let's go to my friend, Oli. Your word was scale, which is always a challenge. What do you make of it?
Well, I had considered market failures, but I thought that might be a bit contentious, and don't get into that discussion with some of the leading public development economists. So let's go with scale. But I'd argue less contentious is the increasing evidence for intervention from public development banks in the issue of accessing the benefits of sport and physical activity. We know globally that 81% of school-going adolescents are insufficiently physically active, 27% of adults. But we know more about the economic cost of this inactivity. The Global Status Report on Physical Activity sets out from 2020 to 2030 that there will be 500 million new cases of preventable non-communicable disease at a cost of US $300 billion over that 10-year period, with 3/4 of this cases occurring in lower and upper middle income countries. And in response, the World Health Organization's Global Status Report recommends that innovative financing mechanisms for policy actions and responses are critical, particularly within national development agendas. I think this dynamic then and this economic burden has particular relevance for the development financing community and public development banks in particular. But there's one important dynamic here between the physical activity components, organised physical activity, and sport, is that they are different. And so the story goes beyond just the health benefits of reducing a top risk factor for non-communicable disease. Sport-based projects, sport-based investments, infrastructure, or human capital development orientated deliver a multiplier effect and deliver multiple returns on investment. An example. The One Win leads to another initiative that the IOC delivers in partnership with UN Women in multiple Latin American countries, has a methodology that includes participation options to increase the physical health benefits for young women and girls across the countries where the project rolls out, dedicated skill development programs providing employability returns, and then based on the transition of these young women and girls into the sport and physical activity workforce and value chain, gender equality and social inclusion outcomes by challenging social attitudes towards the role and employment and economic participation opportunities for women and girls. However, to conclude, we've got to be clear that these multiple returns on investment and this multiplier effect doesn't exist in a vacuum outside of the current global challenges that we're all facing. The IOC's recently worked with worldwide Olympic and Paralympic insurance partner Allianz to understand some of the impact of these global challenges on access to these multiple benefits of participation in physical activity and organised physical activity and sport at a grassroots level in particular. In this research, 72% of young people and 90% of the parents surveyed recognise the importance of grassroots sport participation for these multiple benefits. But of a key concern, 37% of the same young people reported accessing these benefits less due to cost of living pressures, 34% because of the ongoing impact of COVID, and 30% because of the impacts of climate change. Through the International Olympic Committee's Olympism 365 strategy and our Olympic Solidarity Program, we've ring-fenced a significant resource to work collaboratively with the development sector and the development financing sector in particular to seed proof of concept projects, support technical assistance, and undertake the analytical work to transition these projects into scaled, bankable investments by the public development banks and financing community. Now, whether or not these type of interventions should be categorised as responding to a market failure, I won't get into that debate. But what is clear, with 81% of young people physically inactive or not active enough to realise the health benefits, and 37% of those that we researched now doing less now doing less because of cost of living pressures, the case for scaled responses is more stark and clear.
Well, Oli, I think you make a good point of a good case for the urgency of this. It's an agenda. Maybe it's not a nice to have. It's a must have. This is something we must work on. So thank you for your words. Now let's turn to Federico. Your word was data. From the perspective of the OECD, how can we make progress on this? How can the coalition help?
Thank you, Juan Pablo, and let me join others in thanking the organizers for giving us the opportunity to participate in this very stimulating debate and bring a couple of ideas about how we can scale up and advance on this common agenda. I use as keyword data. It could have been investment, but we had to choose one, so I use data. But many of the colleagues here around the table are actually stressing the importance of having better information, better analysis to understand the impact of what we're doing. And I think that, as was just said by Olli, we are doing this in this particular setting, which is finance in common, because we believe that we have the evidence, we may need more evidence, to trigger, to crowd in more investment. And I think that this is the crux of the matter here. So, question is, we heard from many that sport and the sports industry have a positive impact on local economic development and on the SDGs. So that's a fact. Several SDGs, health, gender equality, education, often food security as well, because there are programs that allow you to join sports, and I'm sure that we'll may mention some of those, providing also you access to food. They can contribute to growth. We have numbers that show the potential of the sports industry to contribute to local economic development. They can contribute to reduce inequality. So the case is there. We have the conceptual and the analytical. Second point, second stylized fact is that we realize that there is an unexploited potential of this sports industry. And this is very much related to lack of investment. So bringing this to scale, as Olli was said. The analysis that our friends, and I'm sure that will mention that, shows that, for example, in Africa, the share of the sports industry in the continental GDP is 10 times lower than the world average. And this is paradoxical, because if you think about Africa, Africa is a continent of opportunities. It's a continent where every year you have 29 million people that turn 16 years of age. It's a continent where more than half of the population is younger than 19 years of age. So this means plenty of opportunities, because rapidly urbanizing, rapidly growing, but also plenty of challenges. You need to create jobs. And our analysis that we produce every year together with the African Union provides a diagnosis that says creating those jobs will require investment not in one industry only. You need to mobilize all possible sources of economic development, and certainly sports, as well as the creative and cultural industries, are an important source for generating this development. So this is a paradoxical situation, because the sports industry is growing at a rate which is higher than the world GDP growth. And this is a paradox, because in many developing countries, sport is part of culture, tradition. So you will not need to do much to bring this to scale. So there is an issue of how do you mobilize, how do you crowd in more financial resources? And I think that this is the purpose of this coalition. Convincing others that, as Hangel was saying, investing in the sports industry is investing in good and is investing in money as well, in jobs, in profits, in prosperity. So we believe at the OECD that, and we very much align with what Stefan was saying, this is not a fate. You need to have data that shows you that your investment is generating impact. And this is the reason why we have, our member countries have come up with one tool and there is actually a policy recommendation to support governments, national or local governments, to assess the impact of sporting event on local economic development. And this recommendation is accompanied by a toolkit that allows those local authorities to identify what are the possible ramifications of this investment. Investment in sports events that can be big, but also small. So that's something that already exists, and that's something that we are very happy to put at the service of this coalition. But there is also something that we are beginning now, and that we will be very much willing to see members of this coalition to benefit from and to partner with us, which is an initiative that we are going to develop with the African Union as of next year, where we will look at improving the availability of data on investment ecosystems in African countries for the whole set of sectors, not only the sports and cultural sector, but where we aim at having a better understanding of what are the risks and opportunities of investing in Africa. We heard from several representatives during these 2 days that there is a misperception or a mispricing of risk, that risks provided by rating agencies are not representing the reality of the risk profiles in many developing countries. And so the ambition of this initiative that we will be launching next year is to improve the availability of information about the investment ecosystems, the investment opportunities, and the investment modalities, including in the sports, cultural, and creative industry. So this is certainly not the only solution. Clearly, to develop the sports industry in many developing countries, there is very important investment that needs to be done in terms of improving the human capital, building the skills, basically, improving the regulation, and certainly investing in the infrastructure, not only sports infrastructure, but other infrastructure. And I think that this is something that this coalition can actually contribute in terms of both advocacy, but also, like Antonella was saying, showing that investing in this industry actually generates a much higher return. So $1, €1 invested, at least €3 generated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Federico. I see you find an enormous potential, particularly in Africa, not only for that youth population, but for your alliance with the African Union, which is a very good practice for the coalition. This is something for all of us, and hopefully our new partners in the audience that will jump in and make part of this coalition. So it's a great segue to go to Will. Your word was investment for purpose. So I'm guessing you're going to make us a good business case for sports for development. And I think that you as an individual have a fascinating story for this. You were working in a fine, I'm guessing well-paid, stable job at the NBA, where you were leading the business for development team, and you said, no, enough of this fancy life. I'm going to go and start the Nomkana Sports Fund in Africa. How do you make sense? Why? What's the vision?
Man, that's a great question, and thank you, JP, for the question. My life was fancy, I guess it was fancy, but is fancy still, indeed. But look, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for inviting me. Thanks, Measureme, for his leadership in putting sports on the development bank's agenda, and Adama, the Secretary General, I don't know if he's here, Adama Maiko, for the invitation. First of all, thank you for also you guys for joining. I think one thing I like to do is really engage with people I'm talking to. You know, people here, but also people here in the crowd. And actually, you know what? We have some books there, and I was going to offer one or two if it's okay with you, Measureme, because that's your property as much as mine. So we did this book a couple of years ago, well, 2 years ago, I think it was, where we tried to, I don't have a mic, I'll speak on. So we did this book, Africa's Sports and Creativity Institute book. That's the institute that I'm the chair of. Thank you. And the book purpose was to really shed light. Thank you. One, two. Yeah, the book purpose was really to shed light on the unbelievable opportunity that sports is in Africa and obviously around the world. So before I give my take, I would like to offer this book to one of you guys. Well, first of all, can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Okay, if you can hear me, give me one clap. Hold on. If you can hear me, give me just one clap. If you can hear me, give me two claps. Two claps. Okay, now you can hear me. So this book, I'll give it to you for an answer to this question. In 2010, South Africa hosted the World Cup, FIFA, first time ever in African history. I'm a son of Africa, obviously I'm very biased here. How much money South Africa made out of that World Cup? Huh? Zero? Bad answer. Anyone else? Billion? 2 billion? No, more. 10 billion? Less?
6 billion.
Eddie? Ah?
6.
6 billion, that's your book, sir. Well done. Round of applause for you. Okay. So, guys, when we talk about sports and the sports industry, it's an amazing opportunity, right? The sports industry, in terms of numbers, the compound annual, it's what we call COG, right? Compound annual growth rate, it's 5%. Annual growth rate over the past 20 years is 4%. A.T. Kearney is projecting sports as 4 to 5% of the world GDP. And another key statistics, 80% of the world is sports fan. Either avid sports fan or casual sports fan. Avid is the one who's practicing, buying, doing a lot of stuff. And the casual fan is us going to the bar on Saturday, watch Manchester United play against Barcelona, right? So those are the couple of key numbers I wanted to share with you. Yes, the sports business is a major opportunity. We talked about sports for development, which is amazing. I like to talk about sports for economic development, because I believe that when you economically empower anyone, male or female, you can go a step further. So my name is Willem Jacob. As you know, I'm the chairman of the ASCI, African Sports and Creative Institute. What we do at the Institute is try to build Africa sports and creative ecosystem. And we try and do it with studies, with capacity building, and with advocacy. We're partnering with the AFD and the World Bank to create that book that I've shared with this gentleman here. And I'm here today because obviously I was invited by the team, but I wanted to share why sport is such an amazing opportunity beyond the numbers. First of all, the world has a growing demand for sports. You see amazing companies doing great in the Western world, you know, NBA, FIFA, NFL, NHL, all those guys are creating major wealth. So in terms of context, what does that wealth mean? It means that 90% of the wealth generated in Europe and in North America is actually sitting there. 90% of the wealth is generated in Europe, North America, with all those leagues. So that means that there's so many jobs available in the market for that. We have successful companies in sports tech, for example. Sports tech, you may know these statistics. Sports tech is a $31 billion business by 2025. Sports tech will be a $31 billion business by 2025. With major corporations like Whoop, for example. For some of you guys, you may know Whoop. They do devices to enhance your fitness experience. It's been evaluated at 3.6. Another media platform called Twitch, which has been acquired by Google for $2.6 billion. So you have companies, you know, raising the flag and proving that sport is a business. So those are a couple of examples in the Western world. What is it now in emerging market? And if you allow, I'm a son of Africa, so I'm going to focus on Africa. So on Africa, we have an amazing momentum. The time where we're saying, oh, sport is nice and it's going to have a beautiful social impact, social inclusion, that's great. And we want to push it, especially towards the SDGs. But SDGs talk about job, talks about employment, talk about economic empowerment as well. So in Africa, the momentum is amazing. In infrastructure, for example, we have $250 million invested in Senegal around the Dakar Arena and the Senegal Stadium. In Rwanda, $140 million around the Kigali Arena. Those are infrastructure projects. Let's talk about talent development, because somebody else earlier talked about talent and the fact that we have so many great talent in Africa. So from a talent perspective, a good friend of ours, Tom Vernon, created an academy called Right to Dream, and he raised $120 million to invest in youth and the development of that talent. Let's talk about merchandising. French company Decathlon posting double-digit increased numbers across the continent selling apparel, sporting shoes. But also, this is an international company. I would like to put the focus also on SMEs. And this amazing woman from Kenya, her name is Navalayo Amboyo, and she created a company called Enda Athletics. She's from Kenya. As you know, Kenyans are great at long-run competition. And she was inspired, and she was looking at all those guys, and they were wearing Nikes and Adidas, but nothing from their own country. So she came up with Enda, and Enda today is valuated at $1 million. And crazy stats from them, the biggest market share of Enda is actually in the US. So she moved from Nairobi now to DC, to Washington, where she's growing her network. So amazing potential, amazing momentum in Africa and emerging markets. I'm not going to mention how Saudi is changing now the game with those major investments. I'm sure you heard of them. But one thing I wanted to share with you, as we are within the development bank world, I personally feel like the development bank is slightly lagging. They're slightly behind, whereas they have a major role to play, and they can be major game changers. We're going to talk about it, I think, after with JP, how development bank can truly change the game, including de-risking, guaranteeing, and all this stuff. But I just wanted to share that with you. Sports industry is sports for development, but it's also for sports for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Well, that's great. $6 billion in South Africa World Cup. Some of that money went to Shakira. She did the song. So thank you, Will. So now for our second round, we're running short on time, guys. So we're going to play a shorter game. We're going to pass the ball, and each of you will have 1 minute to give a macro concept of the agenda. So think of the one word and then elaborate, but keep it short, guys. We're going to just have 1 minute for this final session before we go to closing remarks by the great Remy that is joining us this morning. So let's begin. Oli, please pass the ball to Angel.
Did you like it? Good enough for the NBA?
Very good. You're drafted. Los Angeles Lakers.
Thank you very much. Bulls. I'm a Bulls guy. Now, my word and the short speech is together. I mean, the Olympic lemma of stronger, high, and faster, I think has been complemented lately on together. And much of this event is on talking about the walk. It's not just walk the talk. It's actually to describe what we are doing. And here I want to showcase what we are doing with the International Olympic Committee and with CAF on trampoline in Chile. In a couple of months, we are going to be testing whether investing in schools for people practitioners of sports in primary and secondary schools have an impact on education and health, particularly for women that we know are a force of change. Sport women are a force of change, and I want to go off script and say how in Spain, sport women are actually changing for good the country. But this program Trampoline is going to be testing gender equality, and it's going to be testing impacting people with disabilities, and what's the impact afterwards. Latin America was the house of the conditional cash transfers, that is investing and conditioning those transfers for something else. Sport investment is that. Actually, we invest in sports, but actually we are targeting much more of the things: economic development, jobs, health, and education. So this is talking about the work. This is development. This is change, and we are doing it together in a couple of months. So join forces. Let's do it, and let's scale up because we have the tools, the knowledge, and the evidence. Thank you very much.
That's perfect, Angel. Thank you so much.
It was a better pass than mine back the other way, so thank you. I wanted to reflect on the move from proof of concept, de-risking, to bankable projects. We've got about 2 decades of work with a strong civil society orientation that have shown proof of concept around infrastructure and human capital development projects utilising sport. A key theme of FIX in 2023 is collaboration with civil society. So then the question comes from that move from proof of concept through to bankable projects. And let me give one very quick illustration of our partnership and work with Inter-American Development Bank. Across 3 countries, work on employability and digital skills, about 10,000 young people. The baseline to end lines on critical creative thinking skills, decision-making skills, digital skills have gone on the first metric 36% to 74%, the second metric 55% to 77%. Just an example of the proof of concept. Now to move into the bankable projects, the next step and opportunity is actually to embed this proof of concept working with civil society within current financing and loan instruments and operations with member countries to respond to a need. For example, in Latin America and Caribbean, the extension of the school hour and the need to support education system reform in response to that policy agenda. So the key takeaway point is here, there's opportunities for both direct, if you like, bankable projects around sport-based infrastructure and investment, but also the mainstreaming and integration within current loan and financing operations within the social development space to really provide both a scaled and sustainable response. Because we're past the proof of concept stage, you've heard that with some of the evidence, now it's about the sustained and scaled approach, working with who are the key clients of the public development world, public authorities.
Thank you, Oli. Bankability. Please pass the ball to Stepan. Go ahead, sir. 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. My keyword is societal change. The reason is very simple. When we work and strive a change, it's not possible to create just isles of happiness, but what can be achieved is a societal change through holistic approach. In our approach, mandated by our ministry BMZ, we are working with local society, we are working with sub-regional structures, we are working with national structures and supra-regional structures. Involving all these actors together is, according to our experience, the key for a success. And here I would like to combine with the previous keyword, scientific evidence. Another key aspect in this sense is monitoring and evaluation, because only if you implement a rigorous system of monitoring and evaluation, you can be sure that you are still on the track or what changes have to be done within the approach. And I am happy to announce that in May of this year, representatives from over 20 member states of the Ibero-American Sports Council endorsed the first set of regional indicators. This achievement was possible through a joint effort between the Ibero-American Sports Council, UNESCO and GIZ. And the pilot implementation phase is set to commence in selected countries, supported by the Development Bank of Latin America, of CAF. And these 12 standardized regional indicators will empower the region to assess the impact of sports on the development of these countries, establish baselines, track progress, and identify common challenges. So I hope this small contribution towards the common goal will bring what we need, societal change. Thank you.
Thank you, Stepan. you know, as moderators nowadays need to be time cops because we're running very short. So I'm going to jump straight to Remy for our closing remarks. Please pass the ball. Thank you, Remy. Go ahead.
Thanks a lot, Juan Pablo, and good morning, everybody. I was listening carefully to your proposals, your remarks, the momentum we are creating here. So thanks a lot to Antonella. I mean, ICS is a fascinating, yes, unique, totally unique institution, and very helpful to share its business model, the way it operates. And Italy is a sports nation, so and thanks for your leadership for the coalition, dear Antonella and Angel, Will, Stepan, Oli, Federico. That was extremely reassuring to hear from you, and to see that this issue is really well placed here in the finance under the finance in common framework. I mean. And let me elaborate a bit on this. I mean, finance in common is really about exploring new issues. This is our comparative advantage, and maybe breaking silos, catching up. And this one, of course, is absolutely obvious. So I hope everybody online, everybody in the room, would come out of this meeting convinced of the power of sports for development. FIX is also about science, about research. So that was made very clear by many of you. As you know it, the start of Finance in Common is the research program we built with the Peking University. This is the database where you find year after year more and more data on the community of public development banks, so that we can produce studies and challenge and orient, guide the community. Well, there's the same certainly for this very issue. We need more data. We need more research paper. We need more attention to the connection between sports and development. Good news, we are all doing it. Of course, at AFD, for you to know, we just published a study on impact measurement through sport, in the field of sport. So I think it's totally consistent with what you just asked. And I dream, as many of you know, I dream at a time that, well, we will have, the reference report in our world, which is the World Development Report that the World Bank is producing each year on new avenues for international cooperation on power, on sports and sustainable development. So maybe at the time we have a lot of colleagues, our chief economists should pay attention to the issue, probably way more than what we are doing now, because this is a very serious issue, as it was made very clear here. FIX is also about innovation. Of course, there are things we are not doing, and so I really want to commend notably these social outcome contracts that is now happening. I think there's one by CAF, Juan Pablo, UNESCO, IOC, UN Women that is in preparation. That was launched in the preparation of the Pan American Games, if I'm right. For you to know, we are also working on a feasibility study at AFD to develop social outcome contracting models. And this is something, of course, we are ready to share with the whole community of public banks. UK has been very active on this as well, funding several projects using sports as a lever for health, especially. And I want to commend also our German colleagues and GIZ and IDB and CAF. I mean, there's many things that happened already. and that is happening on finding new proper tools for this. So really, based on science, based on innovation, I think we have the capacity to embark and mobilize. I think that's what I hear in the corridors of this conference, a lot of interest for this coalition. And in my duty as the CEO of AFD, of course, you can count on our institution to be a strong partner of the coalition. We started a few years ago. Now we have a portfolio of 130 million euro sports for development projects, about 160 ongoing projects, mostly in Africa, but of course we can intervene in other regions. And what's interesting is we started with specific projects linking sports and development, and now we see our field offices more and more thinking about factoring in project within their normal business of development finance. Just one example that I like, I was last year in Lomé, the capital of Togo. And in Lomé, it makes more than 10 years that AFD is financing a waste management, especially a huge waste technical center. And the mayor of Lomé came to me and he said to me, well, I had a very awkward, strange idea. Probably you will not be happy with that, but we have a problem. I mean, we have to sort the waste between those that will go to the technical center and those sands, things like that we have to discard and deal differently. So we have to install a network of points in the city of Lomé so that people are trained, they learn how to sort the waste, as simple as that. And he said to me, well, I had a strange idea, would you accept? So I don't know, we are providing a 100 million euro loan to the city of Lomé, something like that. And he said to us, could you accept that parts of the financing, actually a very small part, could be allocated for sports fields? So that people find an interest, teenagers, to come in this very specific setting, places in the city of Lomé, and do the waste management more efficiently than what they are doing for now. So, of course, we have to push for specific projects to mobilize the world of sport. But I think, imagine all the public banks that are in this room start incorporating, factoring in sports in their normal business. I mean, in terms of financing, certainly the sky is the limit if we can do sports through a waste management project. And I'm not thinking about education, health, urban development, many things that is already happening. So what we are doing here is raise the awareness, probably of project managers, bankers in all these institutions, so that, and of course we have to bring them the evidence and we have to bring them the toolbox and the methodology, and there's a lot of work here still to do. So again, kind on us. And my last message is to tell you, of course, that we have a rendezvous now, about a year from now, in Paris, because as maybe you heard, President of the IOC, Thomas Bach, the organizers of the Olympics and Paralympics game in Paris, and President Macron himself a few days ago announced that there will be a specific summit before, so probably the opening of the Olympics July 26, especially to explore. Probably there will be 100 or more heads of state leaders in Paris for the opening. So gather them with public banks, with international organizations, with NGOs, all those we know, and we want to highlight, we want to promote, we want to help accelerate on not only sustainable Olympics. This is already, the signature of the Paris game, but also on the power of sport for sustainable development. So really, I invite all of you to prepare this summit, joining the coalition, our coalition. So we have to come to Paris with a stronger, bigger, larger, more ambitious, more active, more precise coalition. And if you have initiatives, if you have ambition, if you want us to help you move forward this very, very important agenda by next year, you can count on us and you can count on the coalition. Of course, that will be certainly at the forefront next year of all this. So, thanks a lot, Juan Pablo.
Thank you, Remy. Some very powerful ideas. We definitely need that global report on sports for development. I love that development banks can mainstream the sports agenda throughout other portfolios like waste management. Who thought of that? That's genius. And see you next year in Paris for a sports conversation before the Olympic Games. I know Federico also wanted to invite us to the International Economic Forum on Africa, co-organized by OECD and the African Union. I know AFD and CDP are also partnering for this event. So this conversation is ongoing, but I want to finish just by how I started. Sports for Development is a team sport, and we want all of you in the field. Thank you very much. What's that?
Are you coming for the conference OECD?
Shout to my life, did you feel us? Another star, you fade away. Afraid our aim is out of sight. Wanna see us.